Hi everybody, it's Jen. Welcome back to my channel, Hallmark Plus More, where we watch and talk about shows, movies, mysteries, Hallmark ornaments, and anything else that floats our boat. So today I'm going to be reviewing a Hallmark mystery movie. The Jane Mysteries: A Deadly Prescription. It stars Jodie Sweetin as Jane. So there was another Jane Mysteries movie. I believe this is the second one in the series. And this is going to be an ongoing mystery series on Hallmark. So I'm sure you've probably heard of Jodie Sweetin from Full House. And what you might not know is Jodie Sweetin actually likes to sing. So she's kind of a singer in real life. So I've noticed, because I did watch the earlier Jane Mystery movies when it came out last year, that I've noticed that in her stories or in her mystery movies, she does singing. So, just by that, in this movie, she sings a couple times. And I believe they are her original songs. So that's just a little tidbit or a side story that you'll see in most of the Jane Mysteries. You'll see at some point her character is singing. And it starts, she was a singer. And then, she comes home when her uncle passes and takes over kind of his organization. And she just looks into righting wrongs in the community. So, and she's with her Aunt Sadie. So, and she was in theater as well. So, she always has costumes and things for undercover work. So it's always nice when you kind of raid Sadie's wardrobe. So it's a little backstory of the show. So in typical, Jodie Sweetin, Jane fashion, this movie does start out with her singing. And like I said, you'll see her sing a couple times throughout. And it actually starts out with the flashback. I'm sorry, after the flashback. You see her singing. But it does start with a flashback of a young boy going into a pharmacy. And he has prescriptions in his hand, and he takes out a gun, and you see, he's talking to the person behind the counter, and then you turn, and then a second later you see that she's lying on the floor. So you don't see him shoot her, but then that was a flashback. So basically this young boy, 16 years old, the mom has come to them and said, look, my son is in prison for a crime he didn't commit. He robbed the pharmacy. Yes. He had a gun. Yes. But he didn't kill anybody. And apparently he's saying he was coerced by the police because it was basically a false confession, because he was convicted and is in prison now. Now he's up for an appeal. So the mom is saying, hey, I was very sick. I couldn't afford my medication. He came down there with my prescriptions, just trying to get them filled, trying to scare them with the gun. And he doesn't remember shooting anybody, but, he didn't have a mask on. He wasn't trying to hide himself. He was just a young kid trying to help his mom. So, I feel like we've all kind of been in a situation where we want to help our family. Now, obviously, not all of us have gone somewhere with a gun in hand trying to scare somebody, but it kind of sets up that scene where you can kind of relate that this young teenage boy, his mom's dying, needs his medication, and he didn't know what else to do, but he's saying he didn't kill that person. So when they see the flashback, he pulls out the gun, and the woman behind the pharmacy says, I need help. And you see somebody kind of come behind him, kind of like security or somebody else working at the pharmacy. So my first thought was, who was that? You find out it was her husband, Jason, who's the co-owner of the pharmacy. The woman who died was the co-owner of the pharmacy. So then you're kind of like, okay, obviously the young boy didn't do it, because that's what Jane is trying to prove. So you kind of want to go over the suspects, right? Who was in the pharmacy. So there's 3 witnesses, all employed by the pharmacy. You have Jason, the husband, who I mentioned, co-owner of the pharmacy. And from what you can kind of tell, it was a quick scene. It kind of looked like that was a husband who came out, but it's never really confirmed, because he doesn't really remember who restrained him. He just remembers somebody came out and restrained him, somebody screaming, the gun going off and somebody screaming, which I thought was interesting, because it sounded like, from what the police reports say, the scream was after the gunshot. But anyways, you're kind of just wondering what that could be. And then Joe Harper, he was stocking shelves at the time of the robbery, so he didn't really see anything. And then Kyle was the assistant pharmacist, and he was in the back room filling prescriptions. So nobody was really, seeing what was going on, so to speak. And it didn't say that there was anybody else in the pharmacy, like customers. So Jane starts calling all the people that visited the pharmacy that day to see if they heard anything or, saw anything unusual. And he called this one person, this one girl, and she kind of says, no, I wasn't there. Well, it says you were. Oh, yeah, I was. So she kind of went back and forth. So obviously that's a red flag for Jane. So she wants to investigate this further. And when she goes back to the pharmacy, first thing that I noticed was the pharmacy is now called Gante Pharmacy. It was Collins, which was the name of the deceased, and the assistant pharmacist, that was his last name. So then right away I'm thinking, well, obviously he got something out of it, right? Because now he's the owner of the pharmacy. She dies, and I guess Jason's no longer there. So you find out that Kyle is the new owner, even though he seems kind of suspicious. He's got cameras in it now, because he says, I don't want anything like that to happen again. So he seems suspicious, but I feel like that's too obvious. That's got to be a red herring in this movie, right? Because it's too obvious that he did it and now he owns the pharmacy. But then, you ask about Jason because, like, what happened to him? And he says, well, it was hard for Jason to come back, obviously, this being the scene of the crime. He still consults, but I run the pharmacy now. So you're like, okay, he must be pretty distraught. And you actually meet Jason because he was standing outside and Jane talks to him. He seems like a really nice man. He doesn't seem like he was involved. He seems pretty genuine. He said his wife was really big in the community. So, I don't know. I kind of got the feeling he was saying she was involved in a lot. Maybe she knew something. Maybe that's what he was hinting at. I don't know. But at first, he seems really genuine. And I'm like, okay, Jason was really distraught. We left the pharmacy business, gave it over to, Kyle. And then Sadie, the aunt, she actually is the ballistics expert. And in the case, this was the last case the uncle worked on before he died because he was sick. He had a note to ask Sadie something. We find out it was about the ballistics. And obviously, with her expertise telling Jane, basically the 16-year-old boy, wasn't tall enough on where the angle of the bullet went into her body. So then, Jane knew the boy was innocent. Obviously, that's what she's here to prove. But now you have ballistics that prove that. So now we want to find out who else it could be, right? So she's talked to Kyle, she's talked to Jason. The other person she wants to talk to was that third witness, which was Joe Harper, who was a young boy stocking the shelves. Find out he's dead. So then we're like, okay, how did he die? It seems like he owed money to some shady people. So you never really get to hear, his side besides what the police asked. And I don't think the police really went into detail about it. They pretty much just decided he did it, right? So they didn't really look for a lot of other suspects. So then, you kind of, you find out that Ryan's mom, Sandra, gets rear-ended, and you find out, like, okay, was this on purpose? And she's in the hospital now. So now you're thinking Jane's getting too close and they're hurting Sandra because Sandra's the one going after, wanting this evidence to prove her son was innocent because this is time for the appeal, right? So, she's okay, but she's in the hospital. Just a little side story there that she gets rear-ended. And then, they find out the person that kind of said, oh, I wasn't at the pharmacy, I was, all of a sudden went out of town suddenly. So, actually they go to the apartment and find out that she died, that she was murdered. And then you find out it wasn't Jennifer, it was Chloe, her roommate. So the person that they want to speak to, Jennifer, abruptly left, is out of state. So, you're like, okay, they probably meant to kill Jennifer and killed Chloe, so she left. Makes sense, right? So Jane's going out of state to find her. she's not really on good terms with John the detective because he seems to be defending the police, and Jane is saying there could be some, coercion there, false confession. Maybe they were hounding him too much. He's a 16-year-old boy. He had no adult supervision and representation while they were interviewing him. So, she's kind of keeping her distance from John. And of course, she's going after Jennifer. And it's out of state, so she's driving. She stops for coffee. She spills coffee on a young man, and this was odd to me, this interaction, because they both apologize for spilling coffee, and they're like, yeah, I'm tired, whatever, long trip. But they never exchange names. I'm not saying they should go out on a date, but Noma was like, oh, yeah. I mean, they talk for 3 or 4 minutes, and they never say, oh, yeah, by the way, my name is Jane, or my name is blah, blah, blah. So I thought that was kind of odd that they had like a whole interaction, and they both leave. So I'm like, okay, that was not by accident. We're going to see this guy again, right? And we do. On her way to the casino to find Jennifer, her car breaks down and she's walking at night on a road. And of course, you see a car drive up and you're like, who is it? And it's John. And they both go to the casino to find Jennifer. So, you go to the casino, and I was mentioning throughout the movie, she always finds a way to sing, right? Because in real life, Jodie Sweetin is the singer, or it's a nice hobby she has and has her own original music. So, she goes undercover by accident, basically sneaks in the back, and it is mistaken for the singer for the night, and sings and sees the guy that she runs into with coffee at the casino. So she's like, okay, like he's, so she finds him with John, and it turns out he's the insurance guy. So he's not the killer. You think he might be, but he's not the killer. It turns out, Chloe and Jennifer had this scheme going. Chloe needed insulin but didn't have insurance and was using Jennifer's name. So really, that's kind of what was going on. Pretty innocent. I mean, insurance fraud, obviously, but nothing that's involved with the murder. Jennifer finds out, once you find out, oh, Jennifer's over there, and boom, who do you see? You see Jennifer at the tables. And you're like, okay, that's Jennifer over there at the tables. And then, of course, you see Jason, the husband, and he's there like trying to poison Jennifer. And you're like, whoa, okay, well, obviously Jason's the killer, which kind of surprised me. I thought there was a couple red herrings, you know what I mean? Like I say, I didn't think it was the assistant pharmacist. That was too obvious. The guy with coffee, I was suspicious of him, but when you saw him at the casino, you're like, but he's walking around like he's still looking for her. But Jennifer's by herself right now, so I'm like, okay, something's going to happen to her. And then you see Jason. So yes, I was a little surprised that Jason was the killer, I have to say. And I think I'm just always surprised because you don't want to think you live in a world where a husband kills his wife, right? And then blames it on a 16-year-old kid. So, that's how you find out Jason was a killer, right? You see him try to poison Jennifer and you find out. He gets away, and and he supposedly has a date with Sadie, right? Because when Jane was talking to him at the pharmacy, he was saying, I wish I could do something with Sadie, she's still grieving, my uncle. And Jason goes, I'm a part of a support group, blah blah blah. She goes to the support group, gives it to Sadie, the card to Sadie. Sadie goes, and they meet up, and they're going to have a date. So I wasn't suspective of Jason. However, I became suspective of Jason being the killer when Sadie tells Jane, I have a date with Jason, he's coming over. I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, why else would Jason set up a date with Sadie? You know what I mean? He's trying to control the investigation. He wants to know what they know and kind of find out what Jane knows about the investigation. And it would be one thing if we never saw Jason again. So, Hallmark, the reason why I was on to Jason was because you had him meet Sadie. If you didn't have him meet Sadie, I would have been a little bit more surprised. So they see him poisoning Jennifer, obviously Jane knocks the glass away. She's not poisoned, but he gets away. But he goes back and has this date with Sadie, and that's ultimately where they catch him, is in the house with Sadie. And it turns out Jennifer was in the pharmacy that day to get the insulin for Chloe because they were working a scheme there. And she sees the whole thing. She sees, Jason come behind him, and he drops the gun, and Ryan, the boy, runs out. He picks up the gun, looks at his wife, shoots him, rubs his prints off, and says to Jennifer, the boy killed him. You're going to say that. I know you have a con with the insulin, and I'm going to tell on you, and you're going to go to jail with Chloe. You're going to say the boy did it. So, I mean, the husband basically threatens Jennifer right there on the spot. The scream that you heard was Jennifer's. So after all of this happens, like, she sees Ryan and Jason struggle, Ryan runs out, she sees Jason shoot his wife, that's her screaming like, what did I just see, right? So that kind of explains it, because earlier when I said it was odd that they heard the scream after the shot, that's what it was. It wasn't her. It was Jennifer screaming, going, oh my gosh, what did I just see? So it's nice that everything kind of comes to light. And of course, John and Jane make up, because you could tell Jane was a little standoffish to him in the episode. I mentioned the singing. Of course, it ends with her singing yet again. So, I feel like that's part of Jodie Sweetin's contract to make these Jane mysteries. Like, hey, I'm a singer in real life. I have to sing a little bit in all of my Jane mystery movies. Because of the two I've seen, she's sang a couple times. But she's a great singer. I mean, it works. Her background story for Jane is that she's a singer. So I'm not saying it's out of place at all. I'm just saying I think it's funny. Like, I'm looking forward to each movie knowing that she's going to sing at some point undercover as part of her gig. So, once again, at the end of the movie, you see her sing again. But I love the songs. Like I say, I think they're original songs for Jodie Sweetin. Don't quote me on that. But, I like the songs. I've never heard them before. And, I think she's a great singer. So I'm not, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying it's something you kind of come to expect to see now when you watch the Jane mysteries. You expect to see Jodie Sweetin at some point singing, and I think it's original Jodie Sweetin songs. So that's kind of cool. Just something that you don't always see in Hallmark mystery movies. So I hope you enjoyed my review. Anytime I do a movie review, I always say what I loved, what I didn't love. Did I believe the characters, the storyline, and the feels, like my overall feel of the movie. So, I have to admit, I enjoyed this movie better than the first one. The first Jane Mysteries, I love Jodie Sweetin. I think she's a great actress. However, I didn't care for her acting in the first one. So when I was watching this one, full disclosure, I was like, oh, I hope she does better in her acting. There was a couple lines in the first movie, and she was like, I'm trying to right a wrong. And I was like, I cringe because I'm like, oh, that acting. But in this movie, Jodie Sweetin, I think you did great. I thought this was a good movie. I really liked the concept, of her kind of going out on her own, and I like you kind of had me guessing, I thought of the husband at first, and then I was like, no, he seemed pretty genuine. And then having him come into play and set up a date with Sadie, I was like, okay, something's going to come out. But you kind of had me guessing, Hallmark, so I love that in a murder mystery. You kind of want to guess throughout and not feel like you know who the killer is in the first 10 minutes, because that's not entertaining. So I do think this was a good movie. I think Jodie definitely acted better in this movie. So I enjoyed it. I think Steven is a great actor. I love the chemistry between the two. I love everybody in this movie. I thought it was good. So I really think Jodie kind of redeemed herself with this second movie. I think she did a better job acting wise. And again, I think she's a great singer. I loved that I didn't recognize the songs because I believe they were her originals, and they were very catchy. So I love the way that's kind of something different that they're putting in this movie. And that's kind of her own personal attribute to it. So, I like that it's different. And I kind of believed it. Like I say, it's hard in real life to see family members kill other family members, especially a spouse. But that happens in real life, unfortunately. I don't like saying that, but people kill brothers and sisters out of jealousy, greed, money, affairs. They kill their wife so they can be with their mistress. I mean, it happens. So I didn't like that it was the husband, but that is real life sometimes. So I thought that was great because it kept me kind of guessing and wanting to figure out and who the insurance person was. I like the red herring. I like the Jennifer Chloe, with the insurance fraud. I like how everything kind of came together. I also rate movies on the feels. How did it make me feel? And I thought the characters did well. For a Hallmark mystery movie, I don't think this was a bad movie. I thought it was a good movie. Like I said, I think Jodie did a lot better acting in this one, and I love Jason. I think Sadie the aunt was great. So I am going to look forward to the next installment because I do like how it's a little bit of a different dynamic. I kind of liked how Jane mentioned maybe the cops might have done something wrong, and you see Steven's character, John, the detective John, was kind of in a hard place. He wanted to be with Jane. He's a good guy, but, he wants to trust his buddies. So I feel like that in real life with police corruption that we've seen is a little realistic. Good cops are kind of in a little bit of a hard place, kind of trying to do the right thing and not create enemies at the same time. So I do actually liked that part of the movie. So for this movie, for this Hallmark movie, I would actually give this mystery movie 4 gold crayons. So if I were to rate this, that is my Jen rating for this movie. I hope you enjoyed my review. I hope you enjoyed the movie. Looking forward again, like I say, to the next Jane mysteries. I think Jodie is really starting to get her footing in these movies, and I'm looking forward to the next one. So until then, I will see you then. Bye.